at the 4-month milestone of our Hong Kong movement, the Hong Kong government revived an outdated colonial law, the Emergency Regulations Ordinance, to implement an anti-mask law. This new law, forbidding people to mask their faces in times of protest, was put in place specifically to target the young protesters of this largely anonymous fight for freedom. Hong Kong's Chief Executive, Carrie Lam, claimed that this controversial law would bring a drastic drop to the number of participants, therefore an easy end to the unrest in Hong Kong. Yet, in the following weekends, people still came onto the streets with masks on. Despite marches and rallies being banned from early July, hundreds and thousands of Hong Kongers still came onto the streets to resist, sometimes with a dash of humor and creativity, but always together as one. Who would have thought that Hong Kong, being this financial city where people previously only came out once in a while to protest, would become this most symbolic global icon of resilience in this year of 2019? Who would have thought that our Be Water motto and tactics would go on to inspire movements in Catalonia, in Indonesia, and even other parts of the world? It would have been unimaginable just half a year ago, basically, for Hong Kongers to think that right now we would be in a daily basis of tear gassing and police violence, where secondary school kids, moms and dads, and elderly people even are in the front lines of this sustained fight. What started out as 1 million and then 2 million people march morphed into this leaderless resistance that has moved the world. Sadly, the Hong Kong government, in reality controlled by the Malaysian government, responded with even stronger suppression. By giving full authority to the police force, the police have since early June hidden their identities, their ID cards, warrant cards, and violated all codes of conduct. And together with the government, they have turned Hong Kong into a total police state. Up to date, more than 2,600 arrests have been made. Among these, more than 1/3 are teenagers and students of 18 and under. And the youngest one is a girl at the age of 12. Thousands of tear gas, rubber bullets, sponge bullets, beanbag rounds, even water cannons with blue dye have been targeting at protesters, journalists, and sometimes deliberately at head level. A first aider and an Indonesian journalist have both been shot in the eye, suffering from permanent loss of eyesight. Young people, merely dressed in black or wearing a mask, could be stopped, searched, arrested, and even beaten up for no reason on the streets. Just recently, a live round has been shot at point-blank range in the chest of a 15-year-old boy. Alongside with this police brutality, an outsourcing of violence to thugs and gangsters has become increasingly common. I would say this is somewhat of a usual communist tactic. These ruthless attacks on legislators, on students, on high-profile activists such as Jimmy Shan, who has had hit with a metal hammer, and even myself in Taiwan. These attacks aim to intimidate and silence people. It is just devastating to know that that these young protesters in the front lines, some of them, have already written their last words and have these letters ready in their backpacks every time they go onto the streets. One has to wonder, how will this all end? By deliberately eliminating two whole young generations, how will this government deal with its aftermath? This loss of trust in half of the society. And this is only a question that those in power can answer. Whether it is by furthering this suppression or maybe waiting it out, just like what they did in the umbrella days, it simply is not going to work. In just the course of 4 months, we have become a very different Hong Kong. And our demands have been clear and simple since day one. We want justice, we want freedom, and we want reform. And unless these issues are addressed directly and genuinely, there will be no returning back to normal. It all started out with an extradition bill, but it was never only about this extradition bill. At the core of it all, it was always about these very fundamental conflicts between two very different set of values. On one hand, the China model of Xi Jinping, which has no respect whatsoever for its people and their rights, and on the other hand, Hong Kong, this vibrant and hybrid city which has its attachments to these universal that we all as a humanity cherish: freedoms, human rights, and the rule of law. Despite its clever and maybe goodwill design, with the Xi regime, the one country, two systems has become a void. By enforcing this authoritarian rule on Hong Kong people, which might have unfortunately worked in mainland China, the CCP just could not comprehend why Hong Kongers just would not back down, and why are we as determined and as united as ever. And this is the notion that they could not grasp. Hong Kong has always represented something very unique in the world, and we are not just another China city. We are this very diverse city that embraces different cultures. We have held dear our transparent institutions, our legislative and judicial system, and the freedom of expression. When these are ripped away from us, although we have not been known as the very revolting kind, we will fight back, and we fight hard. Hong Kong has surprised the world with its newfound strength and flexibility. And with that, we have moved ourselves to this very front lines of a global fight, one that is really not only between Hong Kong and the Chinese government, but between dictatorships and the free world. Through Hong Kong's challenges, fortunately, the West is also starting to awake to these insinuating powers of the Chinese government. Just as they did with Hong Kong in the previous 22 years, this Chinese regime, this machine, is coming into these democratic societies, and they are working very hard to push their rules and priorities overseas. And it is happening right now. US corporations such as NBA, Blizzard, Vans, Apple are all succumbing to this kind of political pressure, kowtowing into self-censorship. International celebrities such as LeBron James have shockingly chosen to stand by this regime, choosing personal benefits over integrity. By punishing and condemning supporters of the Hong Kong movement, these companies are turning their backs against these very communities and freedoms which they flourished on. And for anyone who believes that the world should be free, open, and civil, it should be alarming. when we have the business communities coerced into making political decisions, and when we have these tycoons, billionaires, silencing themselves in very critical moments, turning a blind eye, being accomplices to these regimes, it is then back to the people to regain our society and to take up the situation. Very recently, the US Congress has shown enormous support to Hong Kong with the Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Act, and we are immensely grateful. But still, regulations and sanctions only are not enough. We need the people of the world to wake up to this situation, to regain our voices from these corporates and governments. Tell the dictatorships with your vote, with your voices, with your actions, with your choices, who really is in power. Tell them that they cannot come into the world with their economic powers and make others conform to their destructive values. Tell them that they cannot, on one hand, suppress the basic freedoms of millions of people, and then on the other hand, twist facts, tell lies, and pretend that everything is just okay. Our message to those in power should be this: there are consequences to your actions. And remember, at the end of the day, it is always the people who have and hold the real power. Despite all these difficult days ahead, I still somehow am optimistic. Just as Hong Kongers have shown the world, the smallest action from the individual has the power to create tsunamis of changes. And just with the right amount of determination, solidarity, and creativity, we, as the people of the world, no matter how impossible the situations, we can overturn it. So please, wherever you are in the world, please fight. Fight as hard as you can for freedom, for justice, for love, for peace, for yourselves and for others. Stand with Hong Kong, stand with Xinjiang, Tibet, Catalonia, Indonesia, Chile, Bolivia, North Korea. Stand strong for everything you believe in. You are not alone in this fight.
Thank you, everyone. Calm down. Thank you so much for HRF, Human Rights Foundation, to have this amazing day with all these amazing people who have shared their experiences. To end this amazing day, I will sing a song. And this is actually a very special song for me because I sang this the first time in May in the Oslo Freedom Forum. And at that time, it was only 2 weeks before everything exploded in Hong Kong. And at that time, it was more of a theory, this song that is talking about all these people in the darkness trying to find the light, striving to find this first sunlight. And amazingly, 4 months and a half later, right now, this has become a reality with the fight of Hong Kong. So thank you so much. I hope you enjoy the song. It is dedicated to all these fighters of freedom in the world. The song name is Polar, and it is in Cantonese. 早已來
去后才忘